passing up the baton.
Just a minute, we gotta get the rest of the time. Here you go.
Right. Yes, please. I think I will sit. Bring it in a little. Do I need to?
We good? Good on the mic? Good on the mic? All right. All right, good? There we go. How wonderful! There are so many of you here this afternoon. As the founder of the Rock County Historical Society, it warms my heart to see the society grow like it has in the 70 years since I founded it. Once in a while, I like to come down here and read newspaper clippings about myself. My goodness, the things people say. A smiling, bright-eyed woman who greeted every sunrise with optimism and boundless energy. Why wouldn't you? Everything was exciting for her. She required very little sleep and seemed to consider it a waste of time. The only thing she never had time for was being unhappy. She was bright, generous. She took care of people. She devoted her life to that. And here's my favorite. She probably baked more cakes for funerals in Rock County than anyone else. Isn't that wonderful? Oh, but my goodness, isn't that the least you can do when the church needs a cake? Oh, I was telling you about the founding of the Historical Society, wasn't I? It's a most wonderful story, the beginning of this place. Oh, I'm Carmen Christensen. I was Carmen Suurmeyer, and before that I was Carmen Headley. It's a lot of names for such a short woman, I know. Oh, where to begin? Well, if I begin with me, I was born in Rosetta, Minnesota, but I arrived in Rock County as an infant with my parents, Lucia and Mrs. Hadley, in 1908. Father was a lawyer and mother a teacher. They taught us at home. My love of an early morning daily walk and my love of history began with my father. He was a firm believer in exercise and would get my sisters and I up before the dawn. No matter the weather, we'd walk 5 miles. Isn't that wonderful? Of course, I don't get up so early anymore. Today, you might still find me in bed at 4 a.m. As a teenager, I worked in Father's law office, and when he became ill, I continued working for Frank Ferguson, helping with docking and other court duties. It was wonderful. Mr. Ferguson also had a real estate business, and it was my job to type contracts and real estate transfers. I saw the history of Rock County unfold in those documents, the names, Hinckley and Brown and so many others. I learned so much about the history of the area when I worked for Mr. Ferguson. Oh, to have a tape recorder in those days. I could have recorded some of the tremendous stories I heard about the pioneer days of this place. Well, I continued to work in Mr. Ferguson's office after he left in 1955, and his son asked me to stay on. He started a travel agency, which I eventually purchased from him. One of my greatest privileges of running the travel office was to help settle German immigrants after World War II. One of them was Josephine Shadwiggle, who became one of my dear, dear friends. Where was I? Oh, then I met Tony Suurmeyer. He was the most engaging young gentleman. He was an assistant cashier at the First National Bank, and I would bring my cream checks, some of them worth up to 60 cents. And he would always have some enthusiastic thing to say, like, "No, don't go spend all that money foolishly." We were married in 1933 and moved into the house across the street from the Hinckleys. I really believe the Lord put us across the street from the Hinckley family on purpose. We developed many common interests from that time on. The family Tony and I made was complete when Diane and Annette were born. Oh, but let me tell you the delightful story of the founding of the Historical Society. In 1942, they asked me to be the county war historian. I copied all the names for the draft board, that sort of thing. The postmaster became used to throwing anything with the word history on it into my mailbox. One day in 1954, I found a letter with a check for $17 made out to the Historical Society, the Rock County Historical Society. Well, there was no such society, so I wrote back. The person who'd sent it asked him if he wanted his money back. He said no. I thought for a long time. Well, the money is for the Rock County Historical Society. I shall see that we get one. I took the check to the bank and opened an account, even though we didn't exist. Then I started to find out how to establish the organization. We had to have an organization. I deposited the check and I wrote the state for advice. A wonderful gentleman from the state came to visit. He asked me, "Is this your idea or are there others involved?" Well, I told him it was my idea, but we already had $17. And how many organizations have money before they even begin? That amused him even more, but he was very helpful. In 1955, the society was organized. We had our first meeting on April 25th, 1955. Many of the early furnishings for the society came from the estate of Hans Kvass, a lifelong collector of antiques who died in 1958. The society had $100. When I went to the estate sale, it was the first auction that I'd ever been at. So with my $100, I spent $1,100. Then I had to tell the banker, Harold Smith, very kind gentleman. He said, "Carmen, don't worry." And he told me what to do. Isn't that wonderful? While this was all going on, my dear Tony was afflicted with a lingering illness. He couldn't get out much. But I was the newspaper correspondent for the Worthington Daily Globe, and after I drove to the train station at 3 a.m. to send my stories to Worthington, I brought him back stories from the outside world. We lost Tony in 1963. I continued newspaper writing for the Sioux City Journal and the Argus Leader until 1976. And I married Jens Christensen in 1977. Oh, but back to the Historical Society. It was 1955, and in no time at all, the society had 19 pickup loads of furniture and antique treasures stored in an old schoolhouse. Can you imagine doing all of this on just a prayer? Then, Mrs. Susan Hinckley offered her life interest in the Hinckley House to the society. Isn't that wonderful? She called and asked me to come over and talk about the idea of making Hinckley House a museum. It was April 19th, 1959. I walked into the house and I looked out of the porthole window and I saw lilacs in bloom. I'm sure I've never seen anything so beautiful. Well, they say enthusiasm was contagious, so work on the Hinckley House progressed rapidly. Various organizations offered to set up different rooms. The county board paid off the banknote, and we opened Hinckley House as a museum in August of 1959. It became a state historical site in 1972 and a National Historic Site in 1974. Oh, I always had a feeling about Hinckley House. I guess it's because I've been there from the beginning. It's a very special place. Looking around now, I think I recognize some of you from the tours that I gave there. Well, and of course, I didn't spend all of my time with the Historical Society. If you read through all these newspaper clippings, you'll see, along with being president of the society, I chaired the local State of Minnesota Centennial Celebration in 1958. I chaired the Laverne Celebration in 1967. In 1968, I was honored for my tireless service to people and organizations in our community. Isn't that wonderful? In 1974, I was the first senior citizens coordinator, but that was only part-time. It didn't take more than 8 or 12 hours a day. In 1976, I was named Business and Professional Woman of the Year in Rock County. Oh, I know that sounds like a lot, but I had 88 years to get it all done. I never did stop my daily walks. I would give the staff at Mary Jane Brown Home a fright. My dear friend Lucille was a resident there, and I had the privilege of helping her eat dinner. I drove out every evening until they took my car away. Well, in the dead of winter, I put on my snowmobile suit and I walked out to dine with Lucille. Sometimes a staff member would try to give me a ride home, but more often than not, at age 84, I walked out the door into the beautiful Rock County winter. Some would imagine I didn't enjoy the walk, but my goodness, the walking just made me stronger. It was a wonderful, wonderful life. I didn't even get to tell you about my poetry, which is a huge part of my life, but we're about out of time, I see. Maybe we could do this again sometime. But I'll give you just one quick example of my work. I actually am quite accomplished. I wrote this as I considered how I might spend my time after this life. It's called There is a Garden. There is a garden wondrous, fair beyond the sunset's gold, and oh, the flowers blooming there are lovely to behold. You wonder why it is so fair without a single weed? The master is there watching it and tends its every need. This lovely garden, wondrous fair, was planted by God's grace, and every flower blooming there reflects His lovely face. And every flower blooming there has come to know God's name, and whether they are big or small, He loves each one the same. And every flower blooming there was gathered by God's hand. He carefully transplanted them to His glory land. And now they live forever inside heaven's door, and cared for by the hand of God, they bloom forevermore. Isn't that wonderful?